wanna tell you something, baby. I made you a long time ago.
Look up ontology, not just in the dictionary, or not only in the dictionary, but also on Wikipedia and on some philosophy sites. Get some background. Ontology is not well understood, and there's a reason for that. It is omitted from the curriculum of all government-sponsored schools. Don't believe me? Look up John Taylor Gatto, and he'll give you the background on that. How the school system was designed and why it was designed to be the way it is. They're trying to train up compliant factory workers. That's the program. So you get trained to be a factory slave for over 12 years of your life, and you never looked into the design philosophy of the institution that you spent your childhood in. You need to remedy that. Real beingness is based on experience. Real knowledge is not coming from external authorities. They will only tell you what they want to tell you or what they want you to know to benefit them. Real knowledge is based on being, not knowing, not thinking, not doing, and certainly not having. For example, if somebody gives you a title, you are the manager of so-and-so department. That's not your being. That's something you have. And even if you do it well, that still doesn't affect who you are. So you could be a success at it, and it would not be at all rewarding because it's not really who you are. So we have to learn about being. We have to learn about ontology. Now, we're using the word care in a very specific definition here. Unfortunately, our Western language does not have a good vocabulary for talking about being. So Heidegger defined the word care as our default way of being in the world. And a little bit later in the series, we'll give you a definitive ontological structural definition for that term. Our problem is that we give up, we actually sacrifice our authentic being on the altar of getting along in the world of the other. And that means we give up who we really are to imitate something external to get rewards. It's convenient. It's easier, or we think it's easier, than being our authentic self. But of course, it's not satisfying. It's not going to make us happy. And it's not going to make us successful, because when we imitate, we become a slave. We become passive. And you can't be successful. You can't win in life by imitating. Real success comes from being, not knowing, not thinking, not doing, and certainly not from having. There are so many people who have a lot of money and they're miserable. There are so many people who have so many degrees, lots of letters after their names, or who are big thinkers, and they're miserable. They're not happy. They're certainly not a success as we define success, which means being all that you can be. So this seminar is going to be about ontology as a background for authenticity and integrity. You have to change your being. If you want to be a successful person, you have to change your being from being a slave, from being passive, to creating. And you can't do that by thinking or knowing, or even by having or doing. You have to be the kind of person that creates stuff, that makes things happen. Nobody can do this for you. We can't give you some information and then you just duplicate that information and suddenly you're a success. No, it's not going to work. We have to begin this process of phenomenological inquiry. Look up phenomenological. Again, not just in the dictionary, but in philosophy sites that specialize in these topics. Get some background on phenomenological inquiry. It means looking into our experience, seeing what's really there. not just taking somebody's word for it, but verifying everything in our own life. You have to look for yourself to find the phenomena we talk about in your own experience. Otherwise, it's not going to be yours. Don't take what we say as knowledge, as information. Take it as an opportunity to look in yourself, look at your own life, and find what we're talking about in your experience. And if you can't find it, then create it. When you attain a unified model of human existence, an ontological model, that means you have attained complete self-realization. And what that means is eternal individuality. We're going to be explaining these concepts as we go along. These are very advanced concepts. Don't have time to cover them completely now. But just know that without ontology, there's no way to attain these goals. We want you to feel at home with yourself. That means we're grounded in our own field of consciousness and activities, grounded in our real being, who we really are, who nobody else could be. That's authentic beingness. When you are something that no one can imitate. If you exist, you are in relation to other beings, to things, to processes, to the world. And the process is that we lose our real self in the world because the world overwhelms us. It makes us passive. It makes us an object instead of a person. We lose so many of our actual capabilities because we're imitating externally instead of creating internally. So you have to create your own prosperity by creating your being as a person who wins. How can you win if you're not being authentic? How is it possible? If you're not being your real self, you will not have all your energy available. You will not have your complete intelligence or all your talents. You will not be able to access the controls that determine who you are. Nobody can do this for you. No one sees you as you really are. And in our default state of being, you don't even see yourself as you really are. You see yourself in terms of the other, in terms of the categories and boundaries set by the others who fill our space up with false claims about who we are. Dualism means a fixed way of being. Dualism has been the default philosophical model for at least the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. Dualism leads us to accept a fixed way of being. There's us and the world. And who's going to win? Of course, the world. The world is bigger than we are. It's stronger. It's more complicated, has more resources. We're involved in the world. We're in relationship. And that means that we have to care about it, even though we don't get to choose the circumstances. That's part of the horror of being in the world, that we don't get to choose the situations, but we have to care. And we have to make them turn out right, whatever that means to you. That's the context in which we live that gives our life its meaning and value. Unfortunately, the context is determined or controlled by the world. Thinking about it will not help. Thinking about it only makes it worse, because then we get a whole bunch of claims that aren't grounded in anything real. The only real solution is changing our being. Changing our being means coming back to our original self. And that requires a process because in the world, our default being is inauthentic. So we have to find our authentic being because we lose ourselves by identifying with externals. You go to the movies, you see some hero, some action movie, and then you walk out of there feeling like $1 million because you identify with something external, but that's not really you. You have to find your real self, and that's only possible with a phenomenological process. One of the meanings is in the first person, on the field, not in the third person or from the stands like a commentator. That's how we can recover our authentic being. The problem in recovering our authentic being is that we don't know that we are being inauthentic. That's the reason you need a course to remind you of all these things, why you don't just realize them for yourself. And the reason we don't know is that we are identified with externals, objects, and labels. We're identified with our car, with our job, with our name, with our family, with our country, with our cause. And this is inauthentic. And this relating shows up as phony. We're all phonies because we're not being our real self. And this shows up in our clearing. We are a clearing. We're not a thing. We're a space. We're an emptiness where everything shows up. The whole world shows up. Everybody and everything up to God shows up in our clearing. So what are we? How big are we? Just try to understand what we're capable of. We can create anything. But because we're addicted to the various symptoms of inauthentic being, such as idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity, the convenience of inauthentic being outweighs the benefits of authentic being, at least in our warped thinking. The ontic conversation. Look it up. Ontic is different from ontological. Ontic means what can be, versus ontological, which means what is. So we have to have this ontic conversation, or begin this ontic conversation, because idle talk obscures what is genuinely ours, what is our real being. The ontic conversation is about the possibilities of being. Ontic means what can be. Right now we're in inauthentic being, but we have a possibility for authentic being. How do we get there? Phenomenological self-reflection. That's the process that reveals what is really there in the world and in us. If you know how to use this process, your actual experience can teach you everything you need to know. Now we're going to introduce a very important concept, the ontological triple. Look it up. If you don't look up these special terms, you will not get the benefit of the material. So go find a good source on ontology and look up triples. The W3C.org, World Wide Web Consortium, has a very good section on triples. Ontological analysis means finding triples. That's all there is to ontological analysis. The subject, the object, and the relation. All of our experience exhibits this triune structure. Consciousness, the object of consciousness, and the relation between ourself and whatever we're looking at. To analyze your experience ontologically, all you have to do is find the triples in your own experience. Look up OWL. Look up RDF. Again, the W3C.org site is a very good source of information for this. The world is based not on monism, not on duality, but on trinity, on the triple. The triple structure is necessary for existence, for consciousness and experience. Without it, we don't have consciousness, we don't have existence, we don't have anything. So the triple structure is the basic structure of the universe and everything in it. Idle talk obscures the reality. The more we engage in it, the less sense of what's really going on we're going to have. All worldly communication is idle talk, because the world is superficial and inauthentic. As soon as you accept the claims, or what to speak of repeating them, you're spreading the pollution of illusion. All idle talk. That means a conversation that's not rooted in real phenomena is simply useless abstraction, talking about words. So idle talk is just a waste of time. Linguistic abstractions and the models made from them and the various logical processes that we can subject them to are just fantasy. The reason we engage in them is that we are seduced by the convenience of abstractions. It's much easier to talk about words than to get into the reality of the subject. So we think we understand the object because we have words about it. But actually we only know the claim. Everything we think we know is just a claim, because idle talk is just about words. Idle talk guarantees that you will not understand what you're talking about. You will not be able to apply it. It is not grounded. It's not real knowledge. It's simply speculation, abstraction. This leads to impersonalism, treating people as objects. You've been treated as an impersonal object. How did you like it? You've also done it to others. So we have to see that it's not it's not the world that is doing it to us, whatever it might be for you. We're trained to do it to ourselves by schooling, by the pressure of society, and by so many other people who insist on some external standard for our behavior. All we have in the world is claims about claims about claims. None of it is based on actual experience or evidence. Any unverifiable claim is only curiosity. It's just hearsay. It's not a basis of evidence that we can use to actually get things done. That's why it's called idle talk. It doesn't have anything to do with any real work. There are many false claims floating around, and they only benefit the persons and organizations that make them. There's a lot of propaganda in the world. There's a lot of disinformation. You have to learn how to rely only on your own experience. Otherwise, you get caught up in nonsense like conspiracy theorizing, which is a perfect example of curious idle talk. But we keep getting seduced by novelty. What's the news? Heard anything new today? Facebook is a perfect example. Channel surfing on TV is another great example. It's nothing but media sensationalism. The new, the novel, the alien, the exotic, the far away. But being seduced by media results in a hypnotic alpha state where we're detached from our experience and we're seeing everything in terms of externals. This habit of curiosity sabotages in-depth discussion of any topic, but deep study is required for competence and excellence. You are not going to be a success unless you are very, very good at something. You have to seek out the authentic sources because they provide some real substance, not just empty claims. Unfortunately, we are trained by the media, by school, and by other people to reject deep knowledge because they don't want to see that they're stupid. So anybody that shows up as being smart gets hassled. That allows them to retain the illusion that they understand, but actually all they have is idle talk. Do you think that the government is in control? Do you think that big business is in control? No. You think the bankers are in control? Heck no. They are all victims. No one is actually in control. No human being, anyway. So on the human level, there is no real controller, although certain people and organizations like to pose as the controller. This means that you can take control of your life, your environment, your meaning, your identity, because everybody else is in illusion. The whole world is just a big illusion machine run by curiosity and idle talk. Everybody is full of groupthink. They've been trained by school, advertising, news, entertainment, media. You can rise above this. You can become a success, but you're going to have to change your being. These three symptoms of idle talk, curiosity, and the ambiguity that results from them destroys real meaning. All we have is unverifiable claims. We can never be sure whether they're right or wrong. So we lose ourselves in a jungle of meaningless idle talk. We don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's false. It's all ambiguous. We have to find a new standard for integrity, and that means wholeness, being complete and whole as a person. A human being in the full sense of the word, with all of the qualities and activities of a human being. It doesn't refer to some arbitrary external moral standard. In the world, inauthentic being is the norm. If you try to become authentic, you'll be punished. You have to have a support network. That's what we provide. People waste years of their lives playing computer games, and one day the company goes under, and that's the end of the whole thing. It's happened so many times now. You think it's not going to happen again? Don't waste your time. Or you become an anybody person. An anybody person means someone who only has access to possibilities that are available to anyone. Anyone can go down to the store and buy stuff. You have 150 different varieties of toilet paper lining the shelves. Is that really choice? No, it's not an authentic choice because it doesn't come from you. Anybody can choose them. Anybody can go down and buy a car. Anybody can drive on the roads. Anybody can watch TV or play video games. What are the things that only you can be? That's your authentic being, and that's what we're here to help you find. Philosophy is not going to help you, because most philosophy is inauthentic and it represses our authenticity. They want us to subscribe to some ism and give us an arbitrary set of beingness and rules, what you're allowed to be and what you're not allowed to be. Though people accept these rules, they were made by others long ago, far away, in some completely different circumstance, in some completely different culture and time. They're irrelevant. They cannot guide our behavior today. They're just authority, not real self-awareness. Any real philosophy is going to be based on self-awareness and your experience. Otherwise, it's just going to lead you astray. Look up elementalism and objectification. Again, not just in the dictionary. For these two terms, we recommend General Semantics by Alfred Korzybski. We accept the authority of different philosophies because of convenience. We don't want to have to think through the whole thing ourselves. But guess what? Thinking is not going to do it. Thinking is not going to make us successful in life. Being is going to make us successful. Anything else is just abstraction, just a convenient shortcut to a model that's based on some impersonal concept. So philosophy based on abstract models is always wrong. Why? Because it's not based on our experience. It's not personal. Tradition is idle talk. We accept it because it's convenient. So-called common sense is the same, idle talk based on convenience. Ditto with everybody knows. What everybody knows is illusion. What everybody knows is inauthenticity. What everybody knows is a lie. And the same with abstract philosophy. It looks good on paper. Or like Yogi Berra said, in theory and practice are the same. In practice, they're different. And if you say, okay, I'm going to be a skeptic, I'm going to be a rebel, I'm going to reject everything. Well, guess what? Rejection is a mode of acceptance. You have to accept and acknowledge the reality of something before you can reject it. About the philosophers who simply spin webs of complex abstractions, the more far out the better. They make your head spin, but it's not the truth. Authentic truth means it's verifiable in your own experience. You first have to destroy the hallucination. That's why we're seemingly so negative here. It's like we're down on everybody, isn't it? Well, that's not exactly true. But what we want to do here is destroy the illusion that we think we know what reality is, or that we think we know what truth or authenticity or integrity are. Because we don't. Unless we find that truth in our own experience, it's not really ours. It's not really coming from our being. No one can tell you the truth. The truth is bigger than words. So we're not here to give you information. That's not what this course is about. This course is about giving you examples of things that you can then go verify in your own experience. Because only you can find out the truth by looking for yourself. And if you look for yourself, you will see the things we're talking about. They're real. So we need a real philosophy that gives useful conclusions, not abstract, not phony, something we can base our actions on. That's practical, that works, that lets us win. Because that's what this is about. This is about being successful in a difficult time. The talking head philosophers don't verify their teachings by experience because they can't. It's just a theory designed to disempower you and make you a slave. You really need to see that for what it is. I know it's uncomfortable, but don't worry. We're going to give you some positive things that you can base your real being on, and you'll see for yourself that those work. Exercises and questions. Friend of the Heart is a private educational network. Being in the World is only preliminary background material. The real value and power we offer is in our private seminars, individual training, consulting, and coaching. This material is not easy, but our advanced courses are even more difficult. Without mastering being in the world, you can forget about our private courses. Our commitment is to share with you our powerful tools and systems for changing your being for ultimate success in life. To be invited to our private seminars, you must demonstrate your commitment and integrity by completing the questions and exercises of each section. Exercises. Observe and verify in your own experience the following: idle talk, compulsive curiosity, ambiguity due to groupthink, objectification, elementalism, ontological triples. Instructions for responding. Write your responses. Give examples from your experience. Report your realizations, insights, and breakthroughs. Send a YouTube message to Friend of the Heart 108. Optionally, record a private video and send us the URL. All responses will be kept strictly confidential, and we will reply with our comments. Thank you for your participation.
Gonna tell you something, baby. I made you a long time ago. It's about you and me, baby. Just some things you ought to know. Hey, I want you to hear me. Open up your little mind. You think you're so cool, but are you really? What about the perfect love that you left me?